Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto Was Like Edward Elric in Fullmetal Alchemist, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Joshiro vs. Roshi. The things I do for my runt of a little brother. Joshiro thought to himself as he faced off against Roshi on the cliffside, holding up his new gauntlet as his primary form of defense against Roshi's apparent ability to utilize lava. This had the potential to get nasty in a hurry, and he absolutely knew it. Lava wasn't the kind of thing you were finesse about, you used lava to K someone, as simple as that. That's all that it was good for, destroying, which worked out for Roshi since he didn't really seem to be the taking prisoners type anyway. The exact opposite of that in this instance was the aspect of his alchemy that Joshiro was hoping would be more than enough to negate the powerful ninjutsu that Roshi would be utilizing. The old, grizzled Jinchuriki looked at the frozen chunk of the lava that had been flash frozen by Joshiro. I hope you have more in you than that, boy. You're going to have to come with a better style of ninjutsu to beat me. Joshiro shook his head and flexed his fingers and hand in the clawed metal freezing gauntlet. Sorry. I'm not much for ninjutsu. I only know how to do a certain few that I thought would be useful to me. I'd rather fight like an alchemist than fight like a ninja. Roshi let out a laugh. An alchemist? You can't possibly be that good then. There are only 2 alchemists in the world, and there's about to be one less after I'm through with you. He was aware of the hearsay going around the world about the abilities of alchemy, but none of Naruto or Joshiro's more powerful things had ever slipped. Anyone that they fought usually or were unable to tell other people what exactly they had seen alchemy to be capable of due to them being new nin or whatever. A smirk came to the white-haired man's face, still the best-kept secret technique in the elemental nations. He made a gesture with his hands telling Roshi to bring it on, then come on and try it, old man. Let the next generation of awesome tap dance all over your face and teach you a lesson. Smart mouth punk. Roshi growled out to him. Who the hell did this little upstart think he was? He thought he could just walk into a Wagakure, tear the village asunder, and just walk away. He also had the balls to insult him to his face, knowing who he was and that he was a Jinchuriki. It's time for me to take your green as grass snot nose back to school before I K you off. He kneeled and put his hands directly on the ground. Yugen Kanketsuzen, lava release, lava geyser. The temperature of the ground rapidly rose to the point where the soles of Joshiro's sandals were growing hot. Joshiro narrowed his eyes and kneeled down, the palm of his gauntlet-clad hand against the ground to immediately cool the heating of the ground beneath him. Looking up from where the ground was starting to frost over, he wound up taking a hard punch to the face for his trouble that skipped him backwards across the ground near the edge of the cliff they were fighting near. Getting to his feet after keeping himself from falling over the edge, Joshiro stood back up, eyes locked firmly on Roshi. Rookie mistake. This guy's got at least 5 times the experience I've got. What was I doing taking my eyes off of him to look at an attack that I stopped? In response to taking such a hit from Roshi, Joshiro used his freezing gauntlet and flicked the ring on his other hand, forming his metal cestus glove with an alchemic circle on the back of it. A circle of triangles and a trio of runes. You want to try that again, old man? Gladly, brat. Roshi said before inhaling deeply. Yugen, Kazangan Heki, lava release, lava burst. From his mouth he fired off a rather sizable ball of lava at Joshiro that was too large and moved too fast for him to catch, like he had caught the attack from out of the sky. Joshiro grit his teeth and with his cestus hand punched the ground, raising up a large, jagged series of rocks that formed a protective wall 20 feet up and 20 feet across. Wow. The stone really magnifies my powers. The wall should have been my size, and the freezing of that first ball of lava should have taken longer than it did. I basically flash froze it. He smirked at realizing that his alchemy in all facets had been powered up by the small red stone in his necklace. You Jinchuriki have your own powered up states. Well, I have a little something to answer that with. A hole burned through the wall and out walked Roshi with a red and black aura flying around his body wildly. I'm seriously going to need it too. Roshi roared at Joshiro as if he could hear his thought and the ground with his fists. Joshiro yelled right back at him mockingly and ran directly at him. He quickly realized that this was a bad idea when Roshi's speed overwhelmed him. Damn, and I already have a Cage Bunshin watching the transmutation circle at the hideout. Why does Naruto always have to make using that jutsu seem so easy? The clang of the man's fist bouncing off of his freezing gauntlet sounded out as Joshiro found himself physically overpowered by the man, sliding back across the ground a small distance. But the thing about that was, he had an ace, no matter how stronger than him an opponent was physically. Roshi launched another punch at him and in return, Joshiro did the same with his cestus. The two punches met, but Roshi went flying back into the wall that had been created earlier. Joshiro smirked at actually getting the advantage, though it would only work out if he landed a hit with his right arm alone. You're strong, but this little bit of alchemy allows me to transfer my kinetic energy into a rather destructive amount of force. You've seen a bit of it in action already. I can manipulate the earth with a punch, and I dare say that when I hit even a supercharged Jinchuriki like you coming at me full blast, I'm still head and shoulders better. Just as he said that, Roshi freed himself from the wall, glaring at him hatefully. His arm was limp until he slung it out towards the side, and with an audible snap it was fully usable again. After doing that, the red and black aura around Roshi grew more solid and took the form of a monkey. There's a reason I left the village to learn to use my powers, boy. They're too destructive to use in any training field that Iwa has to offer. You're going to find this out firsthand. XXX. Hiruzen vs. Onoki. Hiruzen looked like he was trying to swat a fly at the moment as he continued to battle with his fellow Cage inside of the ruined Tsuchikage Tower. Currently he was using every bit of his skill with the adamantine staff in his hands to swing at the troublesome Tsuchikage who was somehow able to fly, and not like Naruto with his ability to stand on a cloud. He could legitimately fly without anything at all, no medium like the way Naruto needed the seals he had painstakingly inscribed on the bottom of his sandals. Eventually the veteran of countless battles past stopped swinging his weapon and began to play the waiting game. Onoki wasn't going to get close to him if he didn't have to. Even when both men were in their prime, Onoki wouldn't have gotten close to his Konoha counterpart if he could have helped it. Is that all you've got, Sarutobi? Onoki taunted. I guess I should have gone after that Fullmetal brat instead of you. At least he would have been fast enough to keep up with me. Are your brittle old bones really that weary that you can't move that fast anymore? I'll show you who's brittle when I get a hold of you, you dwarfish little bastard. Hiruzen thought to himself as he tried to track some sort of pattern in the Tsuchikage's movements. Everyone when they moved in a monotonous manner like flying circles around someone used some sort of pattern. It was human nature. If Hiruzen could point it out he could see the airborne man off and maybe lay into him with an attack. As he waited for Onoki to screw up, the Tsuchikage wasn't going to give him the luxury of being able to wait him out. At first he just threw shuriken that only served to be a minor nuisance as Hiruzen was able to easily bat them all away without much effort at all. Not deterred in the least by something that he easily expected, Onoki made a few hand signs and inhaled deeply. Dotten, Dorohitdangen, Earth Release. Mud spatter bullet. He shot several fist-sized hardened balls of mud at Hiruzen at rapid speeds. Holding up his adamantine staff, Hiruzen blocked the attacks, but wound up being driven through one of the walls nearby by the force and velocity of the earth-based attack. Ugh, Hiruzen said as he pulled himself out of the wall, I was too old for this 3 years ago. Get up, Sarutobi. Enma said to him, still in staff form, you're not really going to let this fossil take you down that easily, are you? I'll be damned. Oh, you know me by now, Enma. Hiruzen said with a chuckle as he dusted himself off, I need at least one good hit to let myself know that I'm in a true battle. I'm nowhere near ready to throw in the towel yet. The Uzumaki kid's signal to fall back went up quite some time ago. Enma commented matter-of-factly, this is one battle that you don't have to see all the way through. Hiruzen, we're in the thick of it. I'd leave when I got the first opportunity if I were you. You think it will be that easy, monkey? Onoki asked, smirking at the two as he hovered in front of them. You think that you'll really be getting away from me, Sarutobi? The only place you'll escape me this time is in death. I remember the you sent so many years ago saying something like that it was a message from you. Hiruzen said before smirking, don't you think it was so nice of me to send the bee back to you? I think it was one of my most magnanimous acts as Hokage. He noticed Onoki visibly bristle at that reminder from years past during the tumultuous wars. A squad of half a dozen of his best that were sent to take down the Hokage inside of his own walls, and Hiruzen put him down all by himself before sending their corpses back with a mocking note. Out of anger, Onoki sneered and formed another cube of chakra with a sphere at the center. I'm sure they'll be eager to reunite with you and take another shot. I'll send you right to them. Jinten, Genkai Hikuri no Jutsu, Dust Release, Detachment of the Primitive World Jutsu. He threw the cube at Hiruzen again, hoping that the lack of mobility indoors would further hinder the old man's ability to dodge appropriately the way he was able to do on what once was the roof. Hiruzen swiftly began running up the nearest wall to him, and just as Onoki's jutsu hit the wall and turned it to dust, he was able to jump outside and land on the ground in front of the Tsuchikage Tower. One of the intruders, Enma, turned back into his monkey form and immediately engaged the Iwa shinobi that were trying to intervene against Hiruzen, taking him out with a wild flurry of fists and bare feet. I'll keep them away. You don't need me to handle that old crone, do you? You haven't slipped that much. Hiruzen chuckled humorously before getting serious. If you begin to be overwhelmed, do not linger around Enma. I want you to return to your home the moment things begin looking too bleak. Please, the monkey summon said in an offended manner. Just who do you think I am? I can run circles around these fools. I'll remain for as long as you do, Hiruzen. He said with the utmost seriousness in his voice. Then I guess I'll make this quick and meet back up with Naruto-kun and the others. The former Hokage said to his faithful summon, if you can, clear a path. If fighting Onoki takes too long, I'll have to break away. Enma nodded and went off to keep the battlefield clear of anyone looking to intrude. Hiruzen looked up and saw the short, but powerful Tsuchikage emerge from the top of the tower and looked down on him angrily. In the meantime, he began making hand seals, Kaiten, Kuryu Inden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. He launched a stream of fire that took the form of a dragon and branched into 3 attacks directed at Onoki to hit him from 3 sides. In order to dodge the attack, Onoki flew lower towards the ground, but that was what Hiruzen had desired of him, as when he did so, Hiruzen had been running to the directed area, already making new hand seals for another jutsu, Kaiten, Neppa, Fire Release, Heat Wave. He clapped his hands and released a scalding hot shockwave from the impact at Onoki, who felt himself begin to heat up as burns started forming on his body. Gritting his teeth to bite back a pained exclamation at the burns that were now on his person, Onoki flew low along the ground away from the heated air in the hopes that the air from him flying would somehow comfort his wounds. His ninja forces were spread out. This plan had hit him all at one time all over the place. There were too many of the Iwa shinobi that were either chasing down other discovered intruders, helping with the effort to protect and rescue civilians, or were in the opening attacks that had swept through the village mercilessly. With Enma keeping the few troops near the center of town around the tower away, it was a strictly one-on-one conflict between the two, and like it or not, for the last 45 years it was no secret whatsoever that Hiruzen had his number in all facets of being a Kage, even in the rare instances where they actually met in combat. He would have to make his oldest enemy pay for the transgressions of his treachery all on his own, and he was quite alright with that, he had to admit to himself. Breaking off from flying and landing on the ground with a short slide, Onoki turned back towards Hiruzen. Your little pet weapon is gone now. It's only a matter of time now that your ace in the hole is no longer here. Hiruzen laughed as he ran towards Onoki, having had been chasing him on foot while he had been flying away. You think that Enma is my trump card? He is my favorite summon and favorite weapon, but obviously you've forgotten who I am. When one path to beat you is closed off, another opens up. He threw a shuriken and made a few hand seals, Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. The one shuriken became an uncountable number, all flying at Onoki in a wide spread that he couldn't dodge. Thus the Tsuchikage went with his stalwart defensive tactic, Doten, Doryuheiki, Earth Release, Earth-style wall. He spat out an ever-growing glob of mud that quickly rose up and formed a massive wall covering him from the shuriken that were beaded in right on him. Apparently Hiruzen decided to take advantage of the cover that the wall Onoki erected gave him when it came to moving, and rushed the wall, getting around its side to find a rather surprised Onoki that he wasted no time whatsoever on in beginning to beat his face in. He noticed something wrong when Onoki's face gave way from the barrage of fists that the former Hokage had been dropping on him and had turned to mud. He pulled his hand only to find it stuck inside of the mud clone's face with a strong sucking noise for his trouble. You've got to be kidding me, Sarutobi. Onoki said, making 3 hand seals ending with him placing his hands on the ground, thinking that I would really just sit back and wait for you to come for me like that. Dotten, Wasamono Funbo, Earth Release, Forgotten Tomb. A massive hole opened up underneath Hiruzen and the mud clone he was stuck to, forcing both to fall in, with no sight to the bottom whatsoever. Removing his hands from the ground closed the hole back up, however this only led to him getting hard from behind. The short old Tsuchikage was sent flying by the attack and wound up bouncing off of the wall of the Tsuchikage tower before he caught himself in midair with his flight technique. B trickled down his forehead and face from the impact of hitting the wall of the tower so hard, and he sneered at Hiruzen. The one he had managed to do away with had been a Kage Bunshin. You just don't know how to do you? It's a trait that Konoha shinobi wind up cultivating over long periods of time. Hiruzen replied wryly. He was glad he had stolen a page from Naruto's book and made a Kage Bunshin to test the waters, so to speak, instead of flat out attacking himself. He didn't want to know how deep that hole Onoki formed was. Well, I guess I'll just have to teach you how to meet your maker when you should. Onoki said, forming a cylinder-looking figure of chakra in his hands with a sphere in the center. Jinten, ni Modoru Ray, dust release, return to nothing. The cylinder expanded in hand to the size of a 20-foot circumference and suddenly protruded out at Hiruzen at breakneck speed. The attack saw a large trench through the ground as it traveled towards Hiruzen. Everything caught in its path was pulverized to nothing. The target of the attack grit his teeth as he realized that no jutsu he had could directly go head-to-head with any of Onoki's special ninjutsu attacks. His dust release was a fearsome combination of chakra natures. Nothing Hiruzen had could directly match it. The only thing he could do was dodge and hope he wasn't caught in it. Hiruzen had never jumped away from anything as recklessly in his life. He didn't care about landing on his feet. He didn't care about his next course of action. He wasn't working out a plan of action in case he wound up being hit with the jutsu, because if he had been hit the fight would have been over. All that mattered was that he got away from the attack, nothing else. And escape he did, by the tips of his sandals. Landing hard on the ground, the attack barreled past him and tore through what was left of the buildings in a Wagakure. What momentum and frightening power. Hiruzen thought to himself as he stood up off of the ground. As he looked around for Onoki, his senses told him to dodge in some way, but it was too little too late as something barreled directly into his back and drove forward with great force. Ah! Onoki taunted from his place in the small of Hiruzen's back. Like a tiny projectile he plowed himself headfirst directly into the man's spine with his flight technique and carried him forward with his flight abilities. Did the professor get caught up marveling in the might of my dust release? I'd love to see you reverse engineer that one. But you're going to here, so forget that last statement. He said as he averted his direction to flying upwards into the air. Okay then, god of shinobi, if you're such a god, then let's see you fly. Hiruzen was stuck on Onoki as the man continued to gain altitude. Come on, think. There has to be a way out of this. There has to be, just think you old fool. XXX. With blank, his body still coursing with the ungodly amount of electricity he had absorbed from the entire village, faced off with the 50 Wagakure ninja that had come to assist the large Iwa ninja Akatsuki. Okay, I have around 20 minutes left to squander off a ton of electric energy or else, and I've been graciously supplied with a group of ninja to take my surplus power out on. Alright then, game on. He thought to himself, narrowing his featureless blue-white eyes that clearly had some sort of electric charge behind them. Let's light this candle, Blank said before jumping into the air and pointing his hands down by his sides. Yudo Kaishi, induction launch. From his hands produced a small burst that rocketed him higher into the air over them all. Now let's begin for real. Shujiki Tekiden, shock grenades. Both of Blank's hands filled with flickering orbs of electricity that he threw down at the men on the ground like artillery. The screaming blue balls of electricity exploded on contact once they hit the ground, or anyone unlucky enough to be caught in the path of the jutsu. Men on the ground had no defense against his technique. His element was their direct weakness. Even when they put up walls to block, the explosions still blew right through the earthen ninjutsu formations and took down the victims. Meanwhile, slowly finishing his ascent into the air and beginning his descent, Blank kept pounding away with his electric missiles. Come on. I've got to waste this excess chakra. He didn't even care that much about taking anyone out. They would scatter once they got a taste of how outclassed they were. All he was really worried about was getting rid of his electricity. If he couldn't, his chakra coils wouldn't be able to function properly for too much longer and they would overload and blow him to bits. The pressure that his entire body was under was palpable. Each salvo of electric grenades he threw felt like a small relief to him. At this rate he would empty himself out and all would be well. On the ground, the Uwa ninja that were the recipients of Blank's undiscriminating assault didn't know what to do. Nothing we have can reach him up there. He can just pulverize us down here. Blank was a Wagakore's kryptonite. His specialty was their weakness. His electric attacks could L through or pulverize any of their earth techniques. He had no need to fight to destroy Iwa. He was perfect for guerrilla tactics like the ones that he and Eiko had undertaken, and he had more than enough power to thrive in this situation. If it weren't for the fact that Joshiro had the power and tactics to run the team himself, he would have been the squad leader. Saiteki Surasuta, static thrusters. Blank drifted towards the ground with his hands in the same motion he used to hike himself up into the air, only now he used static electricity to slow his fall. One of the older shinobi that had managed to survive Blank's last attack glared out at him until he got a good look at his eyes and recoiled in shock. No. Why, you're all supposed to be S. Blank smirked at being recognized. Sorry, there are 3 of us left. Your little extermination mission didn't exactly pan out the way you thought it would, did it? What's he talking about? Akatsuki asked the man that looked as if he had seen a ghost in Blank. Yeah, the guy is strong, but you look terrified. There was a clan, from Kumogakure. Over the course of the history of that village they sat between territories dominated by Mizu no Kuni and Tsuchi no Kuni. In order to combat the might held by both villages that had them surrounded, one clan took their nature transformation skill with lightning ninjutsu to its highest level. The strongest of this clan could L the densest Doton technique and could E a ship full of invaders from a distance before they ever reached shore in Kaminari no Kuni. The man explained as eyes focused on Blank. The Nogami clan, however, they were systematically hunted down and destroyed. In the bingo book there was a standing request for the heads of any member of this clan. Anyone could cash in on it, missing ninja, even Konoha shinobi could if they chose to at one point. You should be extinct. Blank held up 2 fingers. You missed 2. He said with absolutely no humor or inflection of emotion in his voice as he raised a 3rd finger. Those 2 had a child, and that child is the greatest practitioner of Raiten ninjutsu in the world. His eyes started generating a massive amount of electricity. I thought I introduced myself already. I don't like repeating myself. Mio no Raijin, eyes of the lightning god. Blinking his eyes fired off a blast of the electricity they had gathered in 2 separate directions. The explosion cleared a path that Blank walked through the center of. Ignoring the lives that he had possibly just taken, Blank started weaving his hands in a circular pattern, forming visible webs of electricity to flow between his hands and fingers. The amount of power he started generating formed a humming noise that grew louder and louder as the air around him started crackling. Akatsuki and the remaining men with him all backed up and prepared their respective ninjutsu to combat Blank all at once, not planning on giving him the chance to attack again. Everyone put everything you've got in one move. He can't beat all of us at once. He ordered as they all began making the same hand seals. Doton, Ibana Dokubaku, Earth Release, Grand Landslide. The ground around the 20 men that collaborated on the single jutsu started jumbling itself up and speeding towards Blank in a massive tidal wave of earth. The movement of the electricity manipulating Shinobi's hands simply started weaving faster and faster as the humming noise around him grew louder and the air crackling and bursting in sharp pops around him got more intense. You don't get it. In this form, I am lightning. Raiten, Ion Kadu, lightning release, ionic vortex. Blank's hands had a fully tangible amount of electricity that he stanched out by clapping his hands together as hard as he could. Around Blank's body, a tornado of solid blue and white electricity began to form and grow. It grew to be 10 stories off of the ground and 70 feet wide. This should get rid of the rest of my pent-up electricity. Blank said in a distorted voice from the center of the tornado as he began walking forward slowly towards the massive landslide. The 2 attacks hit head-on and strained against one another. How in the hell is he actually pushing back against all of us at once? One man yelled as they all continued to focus the attack against Blank. XXX. Eiko had taken Blank's warning and had vacated the area of his battle as quickly as she could. A rather loud clap of thunder got her to turn around where she saw a huge tornado over the plains made of electricity. I swear, you'd better get out of this, you idiot. If you S on me'll never forgive you. She said to no one in particular. He'll be fine. She turned abruptly to find Zabuza walking towards her holding Kubikiri Bouchu. His body had multiple bruises and marks of battle on it, but he seemed to be in well enough condition to travel. Don't even think of going back either, girl. From the looks of things he can't fight if someone he cared about was there. It's better to leave. Eiko nodded wordlessly before turning back and continuing on towards the agreed upon rendezvous point for everyone to meet at. Did you win your fight? Zabuza laughed slightly. Not really. I kind of left the guy there fighting a Mizu Bunshin while I left. He sighed. I'm not S for something like this, even if it is for the Uzumaki brat and his S older brother. When his signal went up I made myself scarce. Eiko couldn't help but start doing the math, so you and I are getting away. That leaves Blank-kun, Sandaime-sama, Joshiro-kun, and Naruto-kun. She frowned deeply and looked back at Blank's massive ninjutsu. Do you think all of the others will be okay? Huh, I don't know. Zabuza said absently. You've got white-haired brat and your boyfriend back there, you know how good they are, they're your teammates. You've got the last residing Hokage back there with a license to see loose. Do you really think that old man is weak? And then you've got Uzumaki, the Fullmetal brat, and he's pissed off and hell-bent on getting his girl out of there. So you tell me if you think they'll be okay. XXX. Joshiro vs. Roshi. This is just great. Joshiro thought to himself as he punched the ground and raised another jagged wall. He can melt through my freezing alchemy and my strong arm alchemy. Joshiro then punched the wall itself and shot of several large spiked projectiles at Roshi with the force of his fist. The man simply used his heightened skills with his Biju's chakra to dodge away from Joshiro's attempted attack. He quickly closed the distance and lifted both arms above his head for a double-fisted S. Joshiro raised his arm that had his freezing gauntlet and used it to block Roshi's attack, though the power of the man behind the attack brought him to his knees. Joshiro let out a grunt of effort as he strained with his other arm bracing the one that was up to block. Damn it, I think he broke my arm through the gauntlet. Roshi smirked and grabbed a hold of Joshiro's injured arm, forcing him to yell out in pain, and turned to harshly throw him into the wall that his alchemy had created. Joshiro exhaled sharply as he saw the man bounding towards him to finish him off. Roshi's body was engulfed in the deep red and black chakra of the Yonbi in the form of a great monkey as he charged forward. Come on. How was I supposed to win this? What did the runt tell me about Jinchuriki? Flashback. A few days after Naruto's return. Joshiro had Naruto in a headlock in the middle of their apartment with a huge grin on his face. You little bastard. Out there beating Jinchuriki left and right and getting famous. Who said you could be more famous than me, huh? Akiza sat on the couch in the living room watching on with amusement. Please don't break him, Joshiro. I'm going to need him for later. Joshiro scoffed. Please, I'm not even trying to damage that part of his body that you'll need. With that being said, he found himself picked up off of the ground at a high angle. Mercy. Sorry. Fresh out of that, Naruto said before dropping his own body backwards to the ground like S-weight, Joshiro on the back of his head, and himself as well. Ow. Ow. Joshiro said in identical pain as he watched Naruto get up off of the ground first and fall onto the couch on top of Akiza, feigning unconsciousness and causing her to laugh and try to force him off. Pushing himself to his feet, Joshiro rubbed the bump on the back of his head. So what's it like? Fighting a Jinchuriki. Naruto stopped playing with Akiza to think about the question. Well, let's say, using a Biju could make a terrible ninja dangerous. It's a lot of raw power that a regular person can't match, big boss. A Kyubi-chan charged Rasengan is super strong. Joshiro nodded. So, weaknesses. Naruto got off of Akiza, taking a good-natured punch to the stomach for laying on her for so long. You've got to concentrate hard to be able to keep control, so if you can break that concentration the power will fade. And then there's the fact that the more demonic chakra they use, the more they tap into base instincts. Eventually they don't even try fighting like shinobi anymore, but that makes them ultra dangerous, a berserk Jinchuriki. So what about you? Akiza asked him curiously. She had never wanted to know too much about Naruto being a Jinchuriki. He was Naruto and that was all that really mattered, all things considered. Naruto smiled at her. Well, you're never going to fight me and force me to use Kyubi-chan's chakra, so you don't ever have to worry about me going berserk or anything like that. End flashback. Joshiro honed in on the charging Roshi and retook his feet, cradling his injured arm to his sea. Okay, he's got more brute force than me, but I've got the Philosopher's Stone. My alchemy can be way stronger than this. All he seems to be worried about is putting me down hard, and he's sure he can just force his way through my every attack. I know how to win this battle, so I just need to do it. He thought to himself as he willed his injured arm to faintly move. XXX. Naruto vs. Han. The steam flying from Han's armor engulfed the planes that he and Naruto were preparing to do battle on. Hopefully that didn't have a legitimate use and was just for intimidation purposes, because even as a mind game alone it was damn effective. Naruto might have been shaken by that display if he had been alone and only fighting for himself. Unfortunately for Han, he had someone he needed to protect, someone he needed to rescue from this country, and no giant in armor was going to keep him from getting her out. He'd crack him like a walnut if it came down to it. With or without Kyubi to help him. Please be careful, Naruto-kun. Kyubi pleaded with him. Damn Jiraiya and his Gogyu Fuan, she couldn't help him in any way at all. You can't draw on my chakra, I can't even heal your wounds as I am. Just don't S out here. I won't S Kyubi-chan. Naruto said to his inner demon as he stared Han down. I made you a promise that I'd get you out, and I know how to do that now. I finally have Akiza-chan, and if this guy thinks that he can stop me, he obviously has no idea who he's dealing with. He told her that, but he knew just as well as she did that without her chakra he was missing a huge knockout punch, so to speak. He'd have to be smart about this fight, because if Han decided to take things to the next level, Naruto couldn't flat out match him power-wise. Deciding that he had waited to act for long enough, Naruto quickly utilized his oldest ninjutsu that he had learned, Futen, Daitopper, wind release. Great breakthrough. Naruto produced a powerful wind that blew the steam away from the area. However, Han himself simply stood in place, not budging from the intense gust that Naruto's jutsu had created. It is of no consequence. Han said calmly after his steam had completely vanished. With the furnace on my back I can always simply create more. I hope you did not expect such an easy solution to the battle, Naruto Uzumaki. I've told you already, one of us will S here today. It is our destiny as Jinchuriki, as weapons, to fight one another to the death. That's a stupid thing to say. Naruto growled out irritably. I'll kick your teeth in and make you see what a stupid thing to say that was. He formed a trio of Kage Bunshin. He had to watch the numbers he used at one time for this fight. He couldn't make an army, and he couldn't use Bunshin Daibakura. He didn't have the chakra to do so and keep going. You can't fight what we are, Han said as the furnace on his back hissed and generated more steam. The man-made hand seals, like it or not, we were created for nothing more than conflict. Juten, Shibo Shinobuyoru, steam release, creeping strangulation. The steam from Han's furnace billowed out towards Naruto and his clones, who threw their creator into the air to keep him out of harm's way. To keep himself from falling back into the cloud of steam, Naruto created his flight cloud underneath his feet, Tenhouoki Fuan, Skywalker Seal. He looked down at Han's cloud of steam that had surrounded his clones. They tried forcing their way out, but for some reason the cloud was impenetrable. The clones began choking before they finally expired. The memories of the horrible way his clones filled his head. Death by asphyxiation wasn't exactly how he ever wanted to go out. Han looked up at the aerial Naruto and motioned his hands towards him. You think that you are safe in the skies? You would be wrong on that account if you did. The steam once again flew from his furnace and joined with the steam he had used with his last attack. Both clouds combined and rushed up towards Naruto in an effort to catch him the way his clones had been caught. Naruto narrowed his eyes and immediately flew away from the cloud. However, the surprisingly speedy steam cloud broke up and separated, trying to see off the area in the sky in front of him in a pincer motion. Meanwhile, the trail that the steam had broken off from attempted to form a dome above him. Damn, this jutsu is versatile. Naruto thought to himself as he diverted his flight pattern to head down towards the ground. The billowing clouds tried to move and take him out, but he dodged the thick steam creations and flew right towards Han as fast as he could. Eat this! Naruto yelled before deactivating the cloud he rode on, forcing himself to be propelled forward with his right fist back. Han's eyes widened as Naruto came right at him and hit him right on the chin with his metal arm as hard as he could. The force of the punch drove the towering Jinchuriki backwards, sliding through the top layer of ground on the plans before coming to a stop. He looked at Naruto with a big gleam in his eyes and a massive crumpling dent in the metal face mask of his steam armor. Yes, that's exactly what I want out of you. He said in an increasingly manic manner, show me the power of my fellow weapon. This is why I exist. To match power with my brethren to the death. The steam started to surround his entire body as a tail seemingly trailed off of the back of it. Come Uzumaki. Use your biju. Let our battle tear the plains asunder. Our combined power will alter the structure of the environment forever at the conclusion of our bout. Naruto flexed out his auto-mail arm and glared at the insane Jinchuriki. Akiza-chan was right. This place really F you up, didn't they, Han? He clapped his hands. Sorry to say, no QB time for you. I'm going to beat you without her. You'll disappoint me if I don't get your best Uzumaki. Han said in a threatening manner, you're going to fight me with the QB's chakra, even if I have to force you to use it. He took off his hat and threw it directly at Naruto with his incredible strength. Naruto then removed his hands from the other and placed them on the ground, lifting himself off of the base level with a pillar. However, Han's hat managed to see right through the pillar Naruto had formed as if it hadn't been made of solid earth. Man, he's strong. Even for a hat made of metal that shouldn't have been that easy. He thought as he flipped off of his ruined structure and back to the ground. Han's hat came back around to the man and he caught its razor-sharp edge in his armored hand. I'll force the QB's chakra out of you. There's no joy in squashing you as you are. Without the demonic chakra lying dormant in RB, we're just like the putrid, two-faced, cowardly normal people that created us and made us what we are. I want a battle with my equal. I want the be of the closest thing to perfection that can be seen in this world, either yours or my own, to stain this ground. After today people will know that we fought here on this day, and they will understand. He slowly placed his hat back onto his head. They will understand that every day that they have in existence around them is because we allow it, because we choose not to crush them under our heel. That they created something that they could not possibly control due to their own greed and fear. He pointed at Naruto, you will utilize the QB no matter what I have to do to push it out of you. Naruto laughed humorously, well then you're going to have to K me Han. He said, clapping his hands and forming his arm blade on his right hand, because I said I wasn't using it, and I won't. But I am still a weapon, I'm just not the same kind as you. I'm an alchemist, and I'm going to show you just what kind of weapon that makes me. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.